Tonnerre 2 Zeus is a CCI wind roller coaster that was redone in 2022 by the Gravity Group. So now it is a CCI Gravity Group hybrid, combining the best of an old classic with modern innovation. The original ride opened in 1997, so it's been open for 20 plus years. Parc Astérix decided they wanted to give it a big makeover. They tapped in the Gravity Group, who worked on this ride for 3 years, first retracking the first drop and first turn. They said, let's reprofile some sections. They lowered a couple turns so it'd take them faster, redid the final helix, and then for the third year, went all out. They gave it timberliner trains, which have a class 5 restraint system so it can handle stronger forces, aka ejector airtime. So they went and reprofiled some hills, give some of those stronger negatives, added in a wave turn, and did all this with their engineered pre-cut track. What this is your regular wood stack rotated 90 degrees. So instead of lying horizontally, it is now vertical. This makes it about 10 times stronger, and you notice a difference. The sections featuring the pre-cut track are just so smooth. It's a fantastic innovation because they can build it in their factory in Ohio, ship it off to France where all they have to do is plop it in and you're good to go. It's very much a modern take of Intamin's old prefab track that they used for like El Toro and Balder. I never had the chance to do the original Zeus. I was told it was fun, but I heard about how rough it was. I know originally people were saying, well, they should RMC it. Having now ridden the new Tonnerre 2 Zeus, I'm glad they didn't go that route because the fact that they were able to keep it wood but give it a modern flair, it was just so good. This was actually my favorite roller coaster that I rode at Parc Astérix. Now, they have since added an Intamin multi-launch coaster called Untitled, so I think if I went back, there's a chance this might not be my favorite anymore. But I thought it was just masterfully done. In this review, I'm going to go in depth to the ride experience, tell you what you can expect. We'll break it down element by element. First, a couple stats. The ride is just under 100 feet tall, or about 30 meters. Speeds of 52 miles per hour, about 84 kilometers. No inversions or anything, but we do have a couple tunnels and a backwards facing seat. I'm going to talk about that experience later because, oh boy, that's when this ride gets crazy. The layout as a whole is very all over the place. For sections, it's very much in the style of a double out and back, but all of it is located in the trees. You can't see most of this coaster from the park pathways, which also makes for a really good night ride because it gets very dark back there. So if you go to Parc Astérix when they're open late, highly recommend that. So let's talk about when you walk up to this thing. The first thing you're going to see before you even get to the ride is this massive statue of Zeus himself. He is huge. Towers over this section of the park. He's holding his lightning bolt in hand, really imposing, and in order to enter this ride, you have to walk between his legs. Be sure to look up when you're doing so because you will see that he is wearing pink rubber ducky panties. I love Parc Astérix's sense of humor. That is just 10 out of 10. A lot of the queue is located in the center of that last turn that you go through into the brake run. Once you get up to the station, they have some really nice theming here. Lots of great Greek columns, very reminiscent of buildings you'd see in Athens. The theming's not over the top. I mean, the best element is really just that statue out front. But there are a couple different theming elements during the ride when they have these tunnels up. But they've really focused on this being a thrill coaster. It's not like a story-driven experience or anything. You're gonna board your timberliner car, pull down your restraint. No seatbelt or anything. It's also worth noting that this is a park that does not have bins or lockers for this ride. You just stick your bags at your feet, which was a new one for me. I don't think I'd ever taken my camera gear for a ride on a roller coaster this aggressive. But they're like, yeah, just put your bags down there, it'll be fine. You dispatch and take a right-hand turn out of the station, start up your lift hill. When you reach the top, you're gonna have a good view to the left and to the right of the layout you're about to experience. You're gonna do a 90-degree turn, and then you start down your drop. I don't have an exact angle of descent for this, but if you're sitting in the back row, you get some pretty good airtime here. This is a fun first drop. At the bottom is the first tunnel. You'll see this face made out of the rockwork, glowing red eyes. Super cool, so you have a moment of darkness before you enter your first turn. If you're in the front, you'll get a little pop of air entering this turn, dip down a bit, and then drop back down. For that moment, I definitely recommend being in the back. You really get thrown there. And then you enter the big reprofiled section here, and that is this wave turn. Awesome element. Ultra smooth. I'm not gonna lie, it is a pretty noticeable jump when it goes from the old track to the new track. This is the section that is using the pre-cut track. I imagine it's gonna feel that smooth for a long time. It honestly makes me wish that the entire layout was done using that. Like if this thing was retracked in that style all at once, it would feel like a brand new wind roller coaster. Instead, you definitely get that mix of old and new. Like the first drop and turn I know was retracked a couple years ago, but it has a bit of a bite to it, you know? It's aged a little. For the most part, I will say if you ride in the front row, it's gonna feel smoother than in the back, with the exception of maybe like a few spots. You'll definitely bounce around more the further back in the train you go, but it's gonna be give and take, you know? Not all sections are created equal. So you're going to twist out of this, go a little bit to the left, and go into your first ejector hill. All of this section was completely redone. I love how low to the ground you are, banking upwards to the right. This drop right here is fantastic in the back row. You really go flying. Another speed hill, and then you're back into your traditional track. There's 2 rapid fire airtime hills, and you're banking to the right. Underneath that first turn you traveled over, you turn out, now you're heading back towards that further away section. 3 airtime hills all in a line here. The way you shoot up out of your seat for these moments is just like fantastic. Honestly, even with Tutatis now being open, this still might be the most airtime in Parc Astérix. This left-hand bank is another one that's really low to the ground. And as you twist out of it, now you have your main tunnel. And there's some really cool effects here. So we have fog shooting up through the track, and then these flashing lightning bolts as you're making this turn. It is so sweet, and you shoot out of that. This is a slightly outer banked airtime hill. Not super drastic, but this is another one of those reprofiled sections. And then the hill immediately following banks you in the other direction. It's kind of set up like a double down, kind of like one of those trick track sections you'd see on Storm Chaser or Twisted Timbers. This hill actually goes over the brake run. Now you're banking to the left around the queue, and then that's when you hit your final brakes. It is a really long experience, so relentless. The pacing on this thing is so good. You do not lose speed at all, which if you go back and watch a POV of the original Zeus, the same cannot be said. So what Gravity Group did here is just like so cool. Now, that's the forward-facing experience. When you ride this backwards, be prepared for one of the most wild rides of your life. It is insane. You have no idea what is going on. You get totally thrown around in what is sure to be one of the most memorable rides of your life. This is a coaster that wasn't ever intended to be experienced backwards, but they did it anyways, and it works so well. You know, I've also done Leviathan down at SeaWorld in Australia. That's another Gravity Group design coaster that features a backward seat. That one having been designed to go backwards. And guess what? I still like Tonnerre to Zeus backwards more. I think it's really because of the airtime. This has more airtime hills than Leviathan. That one's more of a traditional Gravity Group twister layout. This is more airtime driven. But I love how unpredictable this is. We didn't know the layout that well. The backwards ride was only our second time ever doing it. We had no idea what was going on. I loved every second of it. The downside is, of course, you do have to pay for it, which is fine. Like, listen, guys, it's worth it. Trust me, do it. But it's sort of an ordeal because you have to make a reservation for it on Parc Astérix's app. And if they're sold out for the day, then technically you aren't really supposed to do it. If you get lucky, then maybe you'd be able to slip in from the second to last row into the backwards car and no one would notice. But then you're playing a risky game. But you know, we did a bunch of parks throughout Europe, and that backwards ride was one of the best moments of that trip. So I thoroughly enjoyed this coaster. For its final score, I'm giving it a 9 out of 10. It exceeded my expectations. I really did not know much about it going in. I did not expect it to be my favorite ride at this park, but it just exceeded in every single way. Just be prepared for some sections that might be kind of rough. You know, I like to think that I have a pretty good tolerance for that sort of thing, so it didn't bother me like it might bother others. But that goes back to I kind of wish that all of it was retracked at once, instead of this weird going from rough to smooth, but I also understand how much more money that would have cost, how much more of an ordeal it would have been. Maybe one day they'll put that pre-cut track on the rest of it. I can't wait to get back on this thing one day. Easily my second favorite wind roller coaster in Europe. Gotta give number 1 to Wildfire Colmartin. But let me know down in the comment section below what you think of Tonnerre to Zeus at Parc Astérix in France. Do you agree with the points that I brought up? Do you think there's anything I missed? Let me know down below, and of course stay tuned for more coaster reviews here at Coaster Studios, and I'll see you next time.